And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Sports Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Friday, March 21st. We have a lot to cover on the show today. Before I get into all that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining. Between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers, we appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day. So any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we are going to start off the show. We're going to recap the games from yesterday, day one of March Madness. We'll take a look at the matchups for day two, and we'll take a look at some of the matchups also for this weekend, because some of them I believe have been finalized as well. I'll talk about how my bracket looks currently. One of them actually is doing really well. There's one that's not doing so well, but we'll get into that. We'll talk about in the second part of the show the Dodgers being essentially the next villain in baseball and why that's beneficial for the sport of baseball. We'll talk about Najee Harris, his recent comments on leaving the Steelers. He joined the Chargers this offseason. I wanted to talk about his comments on the Steelers. And we'll get into the 5-year anniversary of Tom Brady signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and just the impact that that move had on the NFL. And then in the final part of the show, I'll continue my season overviews. Today we will be covering the Buffalo Bills. So let's get into the first topic, which is discussing yesterday's games. And, you know, there were some good games. I think the one surprising upset was McNeese over Clemson. Now, I actually had Clemson going to the Sweet 16. So that, of course, ended up costing me in my brackets. But that was an interesting game, to say the least, because you had Clemson was awful in the first half. Awful in the first half. They put up 13 points in the first half. And I was looking at, when I was looking at the articles on the recaps of the game, I'm trying to see, because I took a screenshot of it because I wanted to read the stat. So, yeah, 13 points in the first half, and I wanted to see. I took a bunch of screenshots because I wanted to read, because it was comparing that first half to some of the other low scoring first halves, and yeah. So first of all, credit to McNeese, because that was their first ever NCAA tournament victory. And they made the tournament last year. They ended up getting knocked out. Will Wade, the coach, said that, you know, they took it like it was a field trip last year instead of, you know, being more focused. So, you know, here they played really well in the game. Now, things got a little dicey at the end because Clemson had a late comeback, but they were still able to get the win. So, yeah, Clemson's, here it is. So, Clemson's 13 points at halftime nearly set a record in the shot clock era. The fewest points in the first half of a tournament game is 10 by Wake Forest against Butler in 2001 and by Kent State against UNLV in 2008. Yeah, it was a very ugly first half for the Tigers. And you look at what happens in the second half for them. I think they put up 54 points in the second half. They outscored McNeese in the second half. I think it was 54 to 38. I mean, you know, and they came that close. They ended up losing by 2. If the game went a little bit longer, they, you know, probably come back and win that game. But you could tell, like, McNeese was getting to the basket. You know, they were having their way in the paint in this game. Looking at the stats, I mean, both teams really didn't shoot the ball well. McNeese shot the ball 43.5% to Clemson's 36.8%. You know, so that's not great. 3-pointers, I mean, yikes. I mean, McNeese was 4 of 19. Clemson was 9 of 30. Free throws, McNeese wasn't very good. They were 50%. Clemson was 84%. McNeese out-rebound them. Turnovers, also played a big role. McNeese got 19 points off turnovers. But, it's just they did not show up in the first half. And had they played a decent first half, they win this game. But it was just too little, too late. But congratulations to McNeese on moving on. That was definitely the biggest upset of the day. And taking a look at some of the other games. So Creighton and Louisville got us started off. Creighton basically had control of that game the whole way against Louisville. Had a very good game, career high in points out of one of their guards. Neal, he had 29 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists. Shot the ball very well, 11 to 16. Kolkbrenner had 14 points, and Ashworth had 22 as well. But yeah, they pretty much had control. I mean, Louisville was kind of getting themselves back in the game, but this game never really got very close at the end. Creighton, like I said, had control of the game for the most part. Looking at the 1 seed, so we did have a couple of 1 seeds play yesterday. Houston, they won 78-40 in their matchup. Auburn, they beat Alabama State 83-63. In the beginning, it was looking a little dicey. You also had Amar Knox. He was kind of trash talking with the Auburn bench early on. But Auburn, they took control of that game. Their top scorer in the game was Miles Kelly with 23 points. So they move on. They'll be playing Creighton, and a lot of people have Creighton upsetting Auburn, and I am one of those people, so I'm probably going to end up being wrong. Purdue won their matchup 75-63. That game was close for a little bit. Wisconsin won 85-66 over Montana. Gonzaga, I mean, they were up. They took a massive lead early on. They were up 13-0 before Georgia's first basket. It got to as much as 27-3. And then at the half, it ended up being 48-27. They ended up winning 89-68. BYU won their matchup against VCU 80-71. That was, I think, another one where a lot of people had VCU upsetting BYU. Arkansas-Kansas was a very good game. That was very entertaining. Towards the end of the game, they're trying to inbound the ball, and they had to waste 2 of their timeouts at the end. And Calipari was really upset with that, how that was handled. But that was a very close game. That came down to the end. But John Calipari, he moves on, and it's going to be him against Rick Pitino. Arkansas against St. John. So I'm looking forward to that game. Tennessee won their matchup as well, 77-62. Texas A&M, a lot of people were picking Yale to upset them. I was one of those people. Texas A&M ended up winning 80-71. Drake won against Mizzou 67-57. An 11 seed upsets a 6 seed. I mean, they had 30 wins coming into the game, and they finished in first place in their conference. But yeah, they ended up winning. UCLA all over Utah State 72-47. St. John's winning 83-53. Like I said, they'll be playing Arkansas. Actually, another very close game. You had UC San Diego against Michigan. That came down to the last shot. I mean, they almost tied the game at the end. Actually, UC San Diego took the lead late at one point, but Michigan was able to come back and hold on. Because it was a tale of 2 different halves. Because Michigan outscored UC San Diego 41-27, and then UC San Diego outscored Michigan 38-27. Because I believe they did take the lead. Yeah, they took the lead late. It was 65-63, but then Michigan scored the final 5 points of the game, and they won by 3. And then Texas Tech winning 82-72. So they move on as well. So for today's matchups, now let me see. Is there any matchups that got finalized for Saturday? Actually, yeah. So we do have plenty. So McNeese is going to be playing Purdue. St. John's is going to be playing Arkansas. I'm looking forward to that. Michigan against Texas A&M. Drake against Texas Tech. Creighton against Auburn. BYU against Wisconsin. Houston against Gonzaga. And then Tennessee against UCLA. So that's what we got so far. And then for today's games, so starting at 12:15 Eastern Time, you got Baylor against Mississippi State. Alabama will be playing against Robert Morris. So I have Alabama and Mississippi State winning both of those games. Iowa State against Lipscomb. I got Iowa State winning. Duke is playing Mount St. Mary's. Got Duke winning. Memphis and Colorado State's interesting. Memphis is actually an underdog in this game. I did have Memphis winning. I picked St. Mary's against Vanderbilt. I do have UNC winning over Ole Miss. I actually have UNC going to my Sweet 16. So, we'll see what happens there. I think I have Grand Canyon upsetting Maryland. I had them advancing a couple rounds last year as well. They actually did win their first game last year. I got Florida winning, Kentucky winning. I do have the Lobos knocking off Marquette. I had Marquette in my Final Four last year. I think I have Arizona over Akron. UConn I have winning. Michigan State I have in my Final Four. I think I have Oregon winning, and then I have. I'm not sure. I have to double check. Do I have Xavier knocking off the Illini? I think I do. But I've done a few brackets, so one of them I have it one way. Just want to double check here. So I think. So looking at that matchup, oh no, I do have the Illini knocking off Xavier. So we'll see what happens there. But some entertaining games yesterday. Let's see what today brings us. Let me know what you guys think about the games from yesterday. What about the games today? Do you have any upsets? Let me know in the comments. So we are going to take our first break, and then when we come back, we will talk about the Dodgers being the next villain in baseball, or the new villain in baseball, and why that's great for the sport. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.